Hey everyone, I'm Rushlock and this is Marvel's Strike Force, and this is a brief overview of the Alliance Raid system. So you go over to Alliance Raids at the bottom right hand corner, and the first thing you want to look at is the raid currency. Raid currency is acquired by members spending their energy from the campaign mode, which you can find here on this main screen and many other screens. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, just by doing campaign missions, whether you're farming up the shards for characters or gear for upgrades, whatever of those activities you're doing, will fuel your raid currency. So the more active your alliance members are overall, the faster you can acquire this and open up more raids. So our alliance here is doing a little 50 raid for Ultimus. We're going to go in here, and the first thing that people get confused by often is knowing which strike team to join. So you want to assess how many members are on each team, and also the progression, the current percentage here. When I joined, this was 4 of 8, so I had the lowest common number of members currently on the strike team, and the lowest percentage of progression. So we joined this team, and we'll go here in just a moment. The next thing we'll be looking at is why do raids? What's the reward system like? So we go to the rewards tab. You can see there are 3 tiers. 1 at 30%, 2 at 60%, and tier 3 at 100%. Basic math, you can see it's 30%, 30%, 40%. So it's more effort to reach the 3rd tier, which will also determine which raid your alliance is going to be running. For example, we're running level 50 right now to 30%. If we want to compare that to level 40, let's see if we can enter this one here and just look at the reward system. I would want to compare the tier 2 and tier 3 rewards. Do we want a 100% level 40 or do we want a 30% level 50? And that'll help determine which raid your alliance should be running. If you're not the one making those decisions, you don't have to worry about that, but that's where you find that information. You can do the math and figure out what's best for your group of players. So back into the raid, we've looked at the reward system. We've talked about the progress here. You're going to push to 30, 60, or 100%. We're going to our team here. We're going to start here where everyone starts at the beginning of the raid, where you have to pick out your path. So kind of pay attention to where other players have gone. This is one of the other common mistakes that new raiders make, is they'll see somebody here and you're like, oh, I'm going to go help this person and go after the fight they're going after. You don't want to do that. You want to pick your own path. You want to take as many fights on your own as you can. It's not the end of the world if you go down the same path as somebody. For example, I could take this path here, which would end up putting me on the same path as Karm. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I also have the awareness that we only need to push this to 30%, so I don't have to worry about overlapping with other people too much. We're probably going to take this path here, though, just get a couple fights in. I can probably do these 3 or 4 fights that will push us to the 30%, or at least very close to it, and then that's all the contribution I need to make to it for us to achieve our goal. Now, when you're setting up your fights, I imagine one of the questions for this video would be, what characters to use. Basic tip, use a healer of some sort. You'll get Night Nurse as soon as possible. She's easy to farm shards for in the campaign mode. But you want to have some kind of healer for sustain. I've seen a lot of people use just Yondu as their sustain character, just use it as summon for the healer to keep their fights going. And the reason for that is if you finish a raid fight and you have characters that are injured, you're going to use a resource. It's the green restoration resource that looks like the blue one from the Blitz. But by using the Night Nurse or the Shield Medic or the Hand Sorceress, I believe, you're able to keep your team well sustained to push into multiple fights, because their health total at the end of one fight is what they start off with in the next fight afterward. Night Nurse is probably the most potent of those 3 choices. You could have a popular choice, or if you have like a Captain America that provides a team buff for defense, or a Luke Cage if you're using a different tank. That's an option as well. But Night Nurse is where I've gone for my sustain. Wolverine has high sustain on his own. Yondu, of course, with the summons has sustain. Quake lowers enemy offenses, team-wide with her 3rd ability, so a lot of things you can do with that. There's not a whole lot of reason, I guess, to show you the fight, but we'll go ahead and do that now. We've given you all the basic information for raids. This is just if you want to go over a raid fight in terms of how to assess targets and where to put your primary damage on and things like that. We'll get loaded in here. Otherwise, if you just wanted basic information for raids in general, you've got that now, and you don't have to watch any further. First thing we're going to do is we're going to turn up the speed here because of the timer. Raid fights are timed at 5 minutes, so I like to accelerate to max speed up. So Captain America is not taunting yet. We want to assess the threat on the board here. We can't target Black Widow right now. Hawkeye is very annoying with his debuffs and his damage potential. We're pretty far outclassed against these enemies, so we're not a big threat here. We're going to have Quake apply the slow to, looks like 4 people. We're going to aggressively heal here to get Quake back up to full. And that's a good example of we need to keep our team sustained over time. Drax is going to taunt. Yondu's going to steal a buff. He's going to do AoE damage to 3 people. We'll have the slows reinforced on Cap. Focusing tanks is not a very common occurrence, but in this situation we're strong enough compared to the enemies that we can do good damage to Captain America, so we want to clear them out as quickly as possible. Use this one for debuffs, and then last shot from the medic. And I've done this to show you on the next fight, you'll see how the damage persists. Also, your energy levels persist, so if you have your ults built up, or your third abilities, I shouldn't call them ults, I guess, but if you have your third abilities built up in the first fight, your next fight will be available immediately on the first turn. You can see our Night Nurse has taken some damage here, so if I want to heal her, I would have to expend 20 of the raid healing currency. She hasn't really taken enough damage for me to worry about. She can use her first heal on herself if she wants to. Again, Wolverine has self-sustain, Yondu has the summon with a heal chance, Drax is pretty tanky himself. So it's basically just Quake and Night Nurse themselves that should take the majority of the damage on this fight. But again, on the next fight, it'll persist on our energy, our health. So definitely pay attention to your abilities and how they're stacking up and on the timing. And you can see that like the first fight we had was like 20,000 power rating. This was 64,000, 44,000, 66,000. So I'll probably pop a lot of ults on this fight, build them back on this fight, pop them again there, or maybe save them up if I'm going to go up to the boss fight. Again, we're trying to push to the 30% mark, so we'll pay attention to that as well. I'll probably have to go 3 or 4 more fights anyway. But that's the basics of raiding. As always, if you have questions or suggestions, put them down in the comments down below. And until then, we'll see you all later.